How's it going, folks, and welcome back to episode number 52 of Park 2 Primera. You might be sat here thinking, Jack, this all looks very different and scary. Don't be alarmed. Today is the end of season live com for, well, season number 6. We are going to be doing a big wrap-up of everything that has happened over the course of this year. And, of course, we're going to be having a look to the future and where our squad is heading. Now, as I said, things do look a little bit different around here. That is because we are using a new version of TCS. It's still a work in progress. None of the in-match stuff has been implemented yet. It's not publicly available. But I thought today would be a nice time to trial run it, see what you guys make of it. I will warn you now, it feels a little bit different in a few places, but you will get used to it. It's like when YouTube or Twitter or Facebook update their layout and you hate it for the first 5 minutes. Come on, sit tight, grit your teeth. It's good. We're going to get through this together. I genuinely think this skin is a massive, massive step forward, though, and hopefully we're going to be using it for the foreseeable future with this series, of course. If you watch me on Twitch, you know that we've been using this for a little while. The big change really being the player profile screen, which has a lot more information laid out a little bit differently. And I think at this point in the year, kind of 8 months into the Football Manager life cycle, it's nice to just spruce things up a little bit ahead of the new game. But anyway, today we've got the end of season live com. We have just played the final game of the season. We'll acknowledge that it happened. We took on, if we have a look here, Numancia, and we beat them 8-0. They needed to get a drawing in this game to stay up. It would be safe to say they are getting relegated. Martinez grabbed 4 in this match. He has been absolutely sublime this year. Really has stepped up, I feel like, the 20-year-old. Kind of comparing him kind of last year and this year to one another. Very similar seasons, to be fair, but he has had his issues of injuries and he has continued to make some really good progress. So it was nice to see him cap it off with this performance to end the year. Elsewhere, Pablo Torre had a great game, as did Ciapina up front to, he's slowly but surely, dare I say it aloud, replacing Mojica. Do I want to say that too loudly? I think people might come for me. But no, Renato's had a really good first half of the season, and much like Martinez, it was great to see him cap off his performance here. But yes, we did play 1 or 2 other games in the league. In fact, it was one other game. We beat Celta Vigo 2-0. The long and short of it is, though, top 4 was assured already. Top 4 is where we finished. There was nothing actually to play for on the last day of the season, so I'm a little bit surprised that we decided to play as hard as we did against Numancia. What it does mean is we currently sit 4th in the league, and with that Champions League football, well, it was already guaranteed. It's further guaranteed. We unfortunately couldn't catch Atleti at the end, but all in all, really good year. But anyway, to really get in the swing of things, I suppose with this being an end-of-season episode, it's time to go into the end-of-season awards, which we're going to start today with. Normally with these end-of-season episodes, I do a lot of kind of talking prior to a match. This year, because there wasn't a lot going on, I felt like it made way more sense to just come in here with the awards. And well, let's look over a squad that's had some pretty good players in it. Ironically, Al Asmar is here at the top. We signed him, you might remember, the Syrian forward. He's played for the B team this year. He's done really, really well for the B team. The kind of player where I've signed him on a free, and I'm hoping to maybe sell him on for a little bit of money. I don't think he's going to be quite good enough for our first team. As a really specialist advanced playmaker, you can see here he's really well suited to the role, but that's just not really an area where I want a specialist. And especially with players like Calderon coming into the first team at centre attacking mid, he's just not quite at the standard needed, I feel, Al Asmar, to really stand a chance of getting into the first team. In terms of the signing of the season, you can see here, it was Ramadani, the goalkeeper. He was a late bit of business that we did because we had some money. I think given the way the Champions League knockout stages went, we can look on that and say, that was a good little deal. Elsewhere, Ciapina and Galarreta, of course, both joined us. Not for the most expensive of fees, but both players put in really good performances over the course of this year. By comparison, maybe Zivkovic was a little bit quiet in the fullback areas. At left-back, he played a hell of a lot for us. His average rating, to be fair, was a 7.13, which, by all accounts, is rather good, especially for a player who came in at 5.5 million. Given the fact he is considered one of our key players on the club profile screen, maybe you want a little bit more from him. At the end of the day, we need to remind ourselves that with all of the players we've just talked about, they're 20 years old. They're players that we've brought in really as part of a long-term vision, a long-term process, because if I want to challenge against the likes of Atleti, Real Madrid and Barcelona, and I want to do it now, I'm going to have to spend massive sums of money on the players who are already the ready-made articles. That's not really what we can afford, nor realistically justify. We need to get in young players and develop them. And I think in terms of That is an objective. That is give that a big tick. We have done that objective and then some. A little further down this new signings list, of course, players like Owusu and Vega kind of did okay as squad players. I feel like this year in Football Manager, since the winter update, centre mids and defensive mids just don't get good average ratings. It makes it really difficult to judge their level of performance. So whilst Owusu and Vega played a lot, you can see their average ratings are below 7s. At the same time, given the fact we've ended up finishing 4th in the league, clearly they weren't like terrible players who weren't good enough to play for us. In the case of Owusu, obviously we signed him on a freebie. He got injured a lot over the course of this year. You can see here some of the injuries that he had. And they certainly added up over the course of the year. There is interest in him, so don't be surprised if we maybe entertain the possibility of him going to Nantes. For 8.5 million, I'd like a little bit more money, I think, but I don't know, 28 years old, lots of injuries, perhaps declined a little bit as a player on the whole. I might have an ear open to some potential dealings, especially if it would mean I can reinvest elsewhere. In terms of the transfers out this year, of course, there weren't a whole lot, but the player who was the big headline departure really was Onana. He ended up going to Atalanta, and he has not had a very good year in Serie A. 2 assists, 20 appearances, a 6.63 average rating. They have been playing him for the most part, you can see here, at centre mid or centre back. He's been pretty atrocious in both of those roles. With hindsight, I think we did a really good job to sell him for as much money as we did. Other players who left us include Ferry and Araujo, although they left for significantly lesser sums of money. In Araujo's case, it was 10 million. You can see he played half a season for Wolfsburg as a regular starter. Ferry, aged 34, kind of in the twilight years of his career. Don't think we were expecting a massive amount from him. I think when you look at the departures, though, we were probably right to sell all the players that we did at the point that we did. So, of course, a little look at the competitions that we were in this year. In La Liga, we ended up finishing 4th. We were constantly selling out, which, of course, is a really good omen ahead of the new stadium being built next summer. It will be finished and we'll hopefully be moving into it if the project is all on time. Mexico was our top goal scorer in the competition as we finished 4th. We had a good start to the year. There were a couple of rough patches, but for the most part, we were very, very solid. There was this period, as you can see here, in kind of November and December, where I think injuries kind of got the better of us, especially with the Champions League group stage to juggle as well. It's kind of been my mission statement, I feel like, over the last few years, but I think it continues to be the case. Going into this summer, I think a lot of our transfer business is going to revolve around just adding a little bit more quality and depth to open up further opportunities to rotate. In the Champions League, speaking of that competition, of course, we made it to the semi-finals. I'm still not really over the way that we got knocked out. You can see Siapina got 5 goals in the knockout stages for us, which was a really, really impressive haul. Actually, I'm seeing that and I'm wondering, that might include his goals for Porto in the first half of the season. But nevertheless, he was the top goal scorer who played for our team at some point in the competition. The board giving us a B+. And whilst we did get knocked out to Man City, the fact that we were able to get past the likes of PSG and Bayern Munich really should be cause for celebration. Of course, in the Copa del Rey, we lost in the semi-final. It came at a point where the fixtures were piling up a little bit, and I think the loss to Atleti doesn't really bring too much shame to us, but it was disappointing to go out without scoring a goal across the 2 legs. And of course, the Super Copa, we did win. 2 1-0 wins. It wasn't particularly pretty. A penalty won us the final, but it was technically a little bit of silverware. I think it says a lot that the board kind of confidence with this competition was a C+ for winning it, when in competitions we didn't do so well in, we got pretty similar performance ratings from them. In terms of the financial side of things are looking pretty rosy. I feel like we're at a point now where we've kind of consistently been breaking into the top 4 in Spain. I'm hoping our reputation is going to start to rise. New stadium's going to come in. We're going to be able to make more money off ticket sales. But of course, with the increase in reputation, stuff like sponsorships really should hopefully evolve over the next few years. You can see we've now got continental reputation, whereas previously we only had national. Most notably, we had no new sponsorship deals this year, allegedly. That said, we did almost double our sponsorship income on last year, which is of course really, really good. Elsewhere, competition prize money due to the Champions League knockout run was great. Broadcast revenue was slightly down. I guess just fewer of our games were getting picked up for TV. In terms of merchandise sales, you can see here Avramides leading the way, Mexico, Martinez, Blanco and Siapina, the other players who sold well. Kind of surprised that we only sold 16,000 shirts, considering we had 21,000 fans turning up to each game. I mean, someone have a word with the fans. Get them wearing kits. For the most part this season, I think we had a fairly standard 11. The second half of the season, perhaps it evolved a little bit to involve Mojica a little bit less. But when I look at this team on the whole, especially the defence and the defensive mid position with Capanu, it was relatively kind of stable this year. And with the exception of injuries and times where players needed rests, it really didn't change unless it had to. In terms of the system, of course, we were constantly tweaking it this year. It's kind of ironic that we've kind of just done a big full loop to the same shape that we ended up playing at the end of last season when we changed things up. We have gone back to this 4-2-3-1. The roles have shifted a little bit with the striker now being a more complete forward. That sees them a lot more involved in kind of the build-up play, and certainly in the second half of the season we saw Siapina get more assists as a result of that. In terms of notable performances, Pablo Torre had a really, really good year. As the season went on, he got stronger and stronger, it felt like. Very, very happy to have him on loan, of course, for another year, the 23-year-old. At this point, I feel like he probably has to be a Racing legend, right? I mean, apparently the fans have a great affinity towards this player. What are the fans saying? If we have a look here, can I see him? He's only in favoured personnel. So am I. Apparently Bicho's here as well, which I don't quite know how to feel about, to be honest. Yeah, I'm kind of amazed that none of us have moved up into the icons category yet. I'm going to try not to take that too personally. Torre was great, and much like the previous few years, I think our centre-backs were really, really solid. Of course, losing Onana was going to be a bit of a gamble going into this year, but it's a gamble that I think paid off because Galarreta was top draw for us. Elsewhere, Ramadani had a really, really good season in goal. In terms of awards, here's what we've got going on in accolades. I don't know why the fact I came Manager of the Year last year is showing here, but I did. I don't think I'm going to have got it this year, just because it wasn't quite as good a season for us. Fans Player of the Year, though, went to Pablo Torre. Young Player of the Year went to Pablo Torre. I feel like he's won these awards a fair few times over the years. Ramadani was Signing of the Year. Goal of the season went to Capanu. Top goal scorer was Mojica, who also got the most player of the matches. In terms of most passes completed per 90 minutes, Owusu with 48. That feels surprisingly low, and I'm kind of surprised it's Owusu who's done all of that. You can see here we have got some record breakers as well. Ramadani set a record for clean sheets in a season. Capanu, he wasn't sent off this season, everyone. He did get booked 20 times in 42 appearances, which is, I want to say that's quite an impressive feat. It's not impressive for the right reasons, but it is impressive nevertheless. And of course, Mojica, in continuing to score league goals this year, broke the club record for most league goals by an individual player. He is now into triple digits. You can see here the overall best 11 for Racing. Bicho still holding on. Cedric as well. Where are you these days, Cedric? He is playing for Pontevedra. How's he doing? He's got 2 goals in 27 for them this year. He really did peak for us, didn't he, in the first few seasons? That's what I'm realising here. I think selling him on for £450,000 might actually go down as one of our best bits of business. Elsewhere, Bicho features in the 11. The rest of their team, not entirely surprising. And for the most part, it is players who are still here at this point, which is cool to see. In terms of most appearances at the club, Pablo Torre holds that record with 207. In terms of the seasonal performance analysis stuff, I find this always really interesting to look at. You can see here, we outperformed in almost every metric versus other clubs in the league. And in terms of the beautiful scatter graphs, we had one of the best defences in the league, only facing 8 shots per game. The opposition conversion rate was really low as well, which is great to see. We really frustrated teams a lot this year. And in terms of goal scoring wise, we were aggressive and clinical. I would like us to be even more aggressive and up those shots per game. But no, we were really, really good in front of goal. I think in terms of just crafting out good opportunities, not wasting shots for the most part. And I appreciate that this year in a lot of live comms, we've not covered lots of the league games against slightly lesser opposition. What I would say is, in those games for the most part, we've created great opportunities. We've taken them. And after a rough period around kind of the New Year period where we just weren't scoring enough, we did towards the end of the year start to get our attacking instincts back on track. So the club vision for this year is coming through defensively solid football, counter-attacking football, make the most of set pieces. I don't love those expectations, but it's fine. In terms of expectations for La Liga, they want us to get to the Europa League. And in terms of the Champions League expectations, they want us to reach the group stage, which I might be mistaken, but I think in finishing 4th, we might automatically qualify for them. I might be wrong there. Don't quote me on it, but I know Football Manager is a little bit weird when it comes to competition stuff. I want to try and get rid of the defensively solid football and the set pieces and the other stuff, but I have a feeling I'm not going to be able to do that. Okay, we've got rid of the defensively solid football. In hindsight, that was probably the one to keep, and I could have got rid of counter-attacking football because we're generally quite good defensively. It has been one of our big strengths this year, but you know what? I'm not going to complain. I think we can play a counter-attacking style, and please, Mr. Perez. Elsewhere, we've got squad dynamics. Mojica, Pablo, Torre, and Blanco still the leaders. I feel like I don't really show the dynamics enough, but all in all, everyone's just really happy. Everyone's having a great time. They're all very smiley. And in terms of the club hierarchy, it's fairly nice. It's fairly standard, it feels like. I don't feel like there's any mad drama going on in the dressing room that I'm desperately having to manage. All in all, very, very happy with the squad layout behind the scenes. Now, I think that makes your job as a manager so much easier. We can have a talk with our players about the plan for next year. I'm going to tell them that we're going to qualify for the Europa League. That's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to tell them that we're going to try and get to the Champions League proper next season. We'll make promises when we come back. They can go away and enjoy their summer holiday now. I feel like a teacher waving them on out as they, go for summer breaks. Just have a lovely time for a few weeks. Don't get injured. It will be fine. Right, training camp destinations. Where do we want to go? You know what? I'm biased. We're going to England for pre-season. I just want to visit my family while I'm there. I've not been able to see them in 6 years that we've been in Spain. You can see here, the post-match analysis for the Numancia game has just come in. It was quite a brutal match to watch a team get relegated in this manner. I don't think there's much that we can garner from this. They just weren't very good in the end. Mojica picked up the First Division Top Spanish Goalscorer award for another year. He has done this a hell of a lot, it feels like, in terms of being the top Spanish goalscorer in the league. You can see in the end he did edge out Mariano by a singular goal. And for the third successive year, he broke the record. Not broke the record. He held the record for most goals in that season. This year, only 19. I don't know. That seems kind of surprisingly low, but I guess he has always kind of overperformed what I should really expect from him. Elsewhere, you can see here, Courtois won goalkeeper of the season. Ramadani did come in third place, so no shame in that one little bit. I feel like at £10 million there or thereabouts, we got a pretty good bargain with Ramadani, who's now valued at 26 million. Would not be surprised if there's a little bit of interest in him going into next year. You can see here, Zidane did get manager of the year. I could only come second. Elsewhere, Rayo Vallecano's manager, Iraola, he came third. They had a really good year, though. You can see here, they finished 8th place. Oh, no, not 8th place, sorry, 6th place. Both Vallecano and Valladolid had really, really great seasons to end things, though. It's weird seeing some of the teams that you expect to do well, like Athletic Club Bilbao to an extent, really, really struggling. They have just not looked good this year. And, of course, in the team of the season. It wouldn't be a team of the season if Mojica wasn't on the bench. There he is, the only player of ours who featured in it. And with that, I think we officially confirm the end of the season. So that's going to bring us on to the portion where we talk about the squad for next year. Now, fret not, there will be a transfer special tomorrow. Today, we're going to talk about some of the bigger plans, I suppose, I've got for the season. And where the squad's kind of going. Tomorrow is all going to be about the doing, the how, and hopefully really starting to bolster this first team, because I want to see us become a regular fixture of the Champions League knockouts. To do that, we are going to need to strengthen. So what you can see in front of you here is my best 11, I think, for next season in my head. This is the team that ideally I would like to start next season playing, with perhaps a few improvements. But to be honest, I'm relatively happy with where we're at. We've got young players who are developing. I don't really want to ruin their roots into the first team. I think defensively, we're sorted. At least when it comes to the starting 11, Ramadani's going to play in goal. He was great this year. I think Velez and Galarreta, two players who are only 20 years old, have a bright future ahead of them. They were standout performers this year. I don't see any reason to concern myself with those areas. Zivkovic at left back had kind of an okay season. We've already talked about it a little bit. He wasn't super standout, but nevertheless, we signed him for £5 million. So I'm not sure we could expect a revolutionary performance. Ultimately, I didn't notice him putting his foot wrong. I'm usually someone who's quite critical of defenders when they make mistakes. For the most part this year, our defence hasn't done that. Now, of course, this year we started with Mark at right back, but going into next season, there is going to be some changes happening. It's worth noting that Mark's loan does expire at the end of this year. I may look to renew it if it could come in with favourable terms and Manchester United are willing to loan him to us, I would certainly take them up on that. But going into the new year, I think Corridor is going to be the man to slot in at right back. You can see here, he's not far away from getting Spanish nationality. Vélez is now officially Spanish. So the good news is, even if Corridor doesn't pick up Spanish nationality in time, we're going to be able to register him without going over the limits. I think we've learned a little bit of a valuable lesson this season with Sia Pina, that realistically, I should wait for players to officially get nationality before planning how I'm going to use their spots. It put us in a pickle this year. Apparently, it takes months to sort out paperwork in Spain. And so as great as it would be for Corridor to instantly turn Spanish and for me to be able to sign a new foreign non-EU player, we need to learn to be patient, and I'm going to try and do that. Moving up into the midfield, Blanco and Capanu have been really good this year. Of course, Blanco signed a new long-term deal at the club, which was fantastic. Capanu, by comparison, has really just developed into this top-draw ball-winning midfielder. I'm trying to get him to be a bit more of a ball player and be a little bit quicker when it comes to his overall pace, which is why we're training him as a segundo volante right now. Throughout this season, I've alternated between passing training and quickness training. I think when you look at him, he's just really good at what he does, right? As a ball-winning midfielder, he's not really lacking anything. Within our system, though, I do feel like passing is important. And with that in mind, I think both his passing and vision are areas I would like him to develop. Of course, he's only 20 years old. Still some room to improve going into the future. I am, should we say, continually concerned about the fact he has got this competitive streak in his cons. I don't think that's anything we're going to be able to deal with. As long as he can avoid getting sent off like he did this year, I'm willing to kind of let him off the hook a little bit. Now, moving up into the midfield, of course, Martinez out right mid this year has been great. There is a world in which I see a strengthening the wide midfield area. It's certainly one of the positions that throughout this season I felt like we maybe lacked a player or two in. So do expect to see a little bit of strength in depth come in there. At the same time, I am wary of bringing in someone who sees Martinez demoted to the bench and never starting for us. He scored 4 goals in the final game of this season. He's capable of scoring. At 20 years old, he's got lots and lots of room and time to develop. And I've kind of invested quite a lot into his development to the point where to bring in someone who just steals away all his minutes, might set him back a fair bit. On the other side, Avramides, I still don't know how to think about Avramides. He reminds me of the Machedo dilemma that we had a few years ago, where we stuck with him and eventually he came good. Avramides has just completed his 3rd season at the club. Let's be clear here. He's been here a little while. This isn't like it's his 1st or 2nd season. This year, he played as many games as last year. He did double his goal tally, and his average rating was better. I think over the course of the second half of the season, he definitely stepped things up for us. You can see here, in the last 20 games that the team played, he featured in 16 of them and scored 6 goals. Is 6 goals in 16 what I'm looking for from him? I don't know. I feel like it's not. At the same time, he's only just turned 21. He's only valued at 16 million. His contract expires in 2 years. I think the most realistic scenario is we extend his contract, give him a big long-term deal, try and raise that release clause, give him another season, maybe a little bit longer, see what becomes of him. If it gets to the point where he's 23 or 24, and I still don't feel like I've been able to get a lot out of him, then we can look to move him on. I feel like, I don't know, even though he's had 3 years here, it'd be premature to get rid of him now. Of course, Torre is in on loan for another year. I expect to see him stick around the club. Unlike Avramides, I feel like in the second half of things, he really did step up. Played 13 of our last 20 games of the season, as you can see here. A lot of them came most recently as well. He only played 1 of the first 5. So realistically, you could view this as 12 games played in the last 15. And in those, he got 7 assists and 2 goals. He's never going to be the regular goal scorer for us, but as a creative force in our team, it's undeniable that he's pretty good. And whilst we have got players like Calderon as a longer-term replacement, he didn't quite match Pablo Torre and Pablo Torre's numbers over the course of this year. If you look at the statistical side of things, slightly better goals per minute, but the long and short of it is Pablo Torre was just way more reliable, created a lot more, had 15 assists to Calderon's 4. Of course, over the course of this year, Calderon has been forced to play a few different positions, so I'm not going to be too hypercritical of him. And additionally, he's 18 years old. I know in the early years, there was times where Pablo Torre wasn't all that. And I feel like with Calderon, we've kind of fast-tracked him into the first team a little bit, maybe mostly to cover up the fact that I'm just very unhappy with Atakovic and what he's managed at the club. but Calderon will still get chances. As for Atakovic, I really want to sell him. I don't want to sell him for a loss. I mean, we signed him for £16 million. We spent a lot of money on him. He's played a fair few matches for us, but he's just never got going. And I kind of look at him now and think, you're not even as good as Calderon. Like, Calderon is 18 and is so much better. It makes absolutely no sense to have you around. Maybe I've just got to cut my losses on Atakovic, except I'm going to make a loss on him and move on. I feel like I'm in a risky situation where I never get rid of him, and as a result, we just lose him on a free at the end of his contract. In terms of the striking position, things do get a little bit interesting here, because Siapina is without a doubt better than Mojica, but I don't see myself just getting rid of Mojica this summer. I don't see myself being in a situation where next year Mojica isn't playing at least half the games. I guess the challenge is going to be trying to fit both players into the team frequently enough to keep them happy. And at the same time, we've got to remember, João Resende still exists. He's been on loan at Numancia this year. Of course, they've just been relegated. I don't think I'm going to loan him back to them. I mean, at this point, he looks ready to play some reasonably regular football as a La Liga player. This year, one of the backups we had was Javi Puado. I mean, Puado's probably going to be going out, and Resende, who you can see here in pink, he's just better, isn't he? He's just better. There's not much point in having Puado around whilst we've got Resende, especially with Resende being on a deal for another 4 years. And whilst he's no spring chicken anymore, age 23, I think he's earned the right over the last few years to at least get a chance to play in our first team and show us what he's made of. He joined us on a free. He's been loaned out for 4 years in a row. This year, playing in a team that got relegated, he still managed to score 12. Yeah, João, I think I've come to my senses. You will get a chance this year. Now, looking at the rest of the team, a few other players who have been out on loan who I think are going to have a spot in the first team this year include players like Leroux. Of course, the Belgian youngster, we signed on a freebie this year and then loaned him to Numancia. Played 33 games in the league, which was a really, really good total to play. Basia, for a lot of this season, has been our backup centre-back. We've been pretty fortunate over the years not to have injuries at centre-back. Basia's about to enter the last year of his contract. There's a little bit of interest in him. He wants a significant wage rise that I'm not willing to give him, so he will be one of the players we offer out this year. But I think when you look at Leroux in pink here, you can kind of see here, Cyprian is just a better player for the most part. Better defensively, better physicals, not quite as good in the air. But in terms of as, you know, the backup centre-back on the bench, I think Leroux can more than do the job for us. Of course, we've still got players like Marsa around, who was a regular starter for oh so long. This year, we did start to phase him out of the team a little bit more. Only made 14 appearances this year, of which 10 were starts. But in terms of the squad depth on the whole, we did rotate things a lot. With the exception of the goalkeepers and, I suppose, Javi Puado, there aren't many players who just didn't feature at all. Even kind of players who you might consider footnotes of the first team. Players like Miguel Salgado, you can see here at 20 years old. He still made 8 starts in the league and 5 appearances on off the bench as we rotated things around. Do I think he's good enough squad depth for now? I think I probably do. He had a pretty good season, to be fair, on a 7.02. I feel like there's a fair few players like him who have made fewer appearances this year who may not ever be good enough to be starters, but that are more than adequate backup for us. I kind of throw Hardy into a similar bracket to that. A player who I think can just be good backup no matter what. I want to keep a few Spanish players in the team. I know this is kind of very much a me thing. I'm someone who is overly conscious of, when I'm managing in Spain, just replacing all my Spanish players with cheaper players from cheap nations. I think it's really cool to keep a core of domestic players. Hardy this year, of course, he got 2 goals against Barcelona. He turned up in some big games. He's not the flashiest player. He's not the best player. If a bid of £10 million came in, maybe then I'd have to listen to it. But he's not a player who I'm actively going to look to ship out this year. And even some of these players, you know, who were down on the lower appearances side of things, are players that I'm more than happy to keep around and do a job for us. So in terms of players who might be on the outs, we talked about Owusu already. I think we've got to weigh up the possibility of selling him, especially with his wages and the fact he missed so much first-team football. We brought him in on a free. If we could sell him on for over £8 million, it would be pretty good business at the end of the day. Elsewhere, Thomas Basia is entering the last year of his contract. Never really been able to give him regular first-team football. At 27, he's entering that point in his career where he's going to want to play regularly. I can't offer him that. Fiorentina apparently do have a minor interest in him, so we'll keep an ear open to them, and if they came along with a kind of tantalising bid. I'd have to weigh it up. One area that we are going to have to look at improving, I think, going into next episode is going to be the fullback area. At the moment, Correa's contract, that is, of course, a loan from Benfica, is due to expire at the end of the year. He did make 11 starts for us, but you can see here he's just not really that good. I feel like we can do better than Correa now. We've got the money to do a little bit better than Correa now as well. £17 million in the bank, some surplus wage budget as well. If we could sell on maybe players like Owusu, there's definitely the room that we can create to manoeuvre in the market. I feel like we've been fortunate for the most part this year, and with this save game, in the sense that Pablo Torre has really been the only big core component of our first team who's had a mammoth bid that I just couldn't turn down. We will keep, an ear open, I suppose, to what might happen. There was talk about Avramidis moving through his release clause of 72 million in January. If that kind of bid came in, I'd probably have to consider it for Avramidis. The ability it would give us to strengthen elsewhere would be pretty huge. On the whole, though, when I look at positions for improvement, I feel like at centre mid, we could do with a new player, especially if Owusu goes out. I'd maybe like to get in another prospect at centre back, maybe at right wing back if Correa goes and Mark goes as well, because they're both on loan at the moment. Then we need to look in at getting someone new in. Elsewhere, higher up the pitch, I think a wide attacking backup talent of some kind would be good. This year, we used Aguilera for a fair few games. He started 5 games and came off the bench 4 times. To be honest, he's not quite of the quality we need, I don't think, the 18-year-old. And players like Jonathan Martinez are good. I do think maybe we could do a little bit better than him. In terms of the manager performance on the whole, you can see here we have a B to our name, which I think is perfectly acceptable. That new stadium is a year away, so we've got that to look forward to. And it's worth acknowledging the fact that in a little over 2 months' time, we're going to be moving into some improved training facilities, which of course is part of our ongoing progress off the pitch to really bring Racing up to the standards of a Champions League club. As you can tell by the youth facilities and the training facilities, hopefully before too long, we're very close to being as good as we can be in terms of infrastructure. I think then we will really start to look at investing into the first team. But anyway, that is a little bit of a roundup in terms of this season from me. In terms of my player of the year, I'd probably give it to Pablo Torre or maybe Ramadani. If you've got a thought on that, leave it down below. In terms of Clubman, I'll give it to Mojica just because I think he might start to get phased out the first team now. And most improved, who would I give most improved to? Probably Calderon. Calderon has improved a lot this year. I did not think he would be getting as close to the first team as regularly as he was, last July. I look at him now and think, yeah, you are a more than useful part of our first team. But anyway, folks, that is going to wrap up everything from me today. I hope you enjoyed today's end of season wrap up. As always, tomorrow we are back with a transfer special. If you enjoyed the video, do drop a like on it. If you've got any thoughts on the skin that we're using, leave it down in the comments. And well, until next time, it is me, Jack, and I'll talk to you guys in a bit. I'm out.